got some more exciting stuff coming up for you. So, don't flood out yet. Lunch isn't ready. It's okay. Coming up next, we're going to be covering a really interesting topic around bringing games from the Korean market into the U.S. market. We're going to be hearing from Scott Moscatelli of Devsisters, who I'm hoping is president nearby. Look at that. Worked out completely. Awesome. I'm super excited to hear what Scott says about this particular thorny problem. So without further ado, let's get right into it.
Thank you very much. Excited to be here and excited to talk to so many professionals in mobile gaming. I'm here today to talk to you about Cookie Run Kingdom, which made the all too rare successful trip from a successful launch in Korea to a successful launch in the U.S. And I'd like to go through quickly, give you a little framework of who I am, my path to gaming, my relationship to gaming, and then a little bit of my career development and what leads me to stand here today. Then I'd like to talk to you about the market factors that influenced and informed the Korea launch, and then also the U.S. launch. And for both, I'll go through really high-level strategy and some of the outcomes. Then I'd like to take you through quickly some of the key learnings that we had and we still apply today, and then we'll look ahead to the rest of 2023 and into next year. So with that, where better to start than gaming? So like a lot of people my age, I imagine, Nintendo was my entry point to gaming. We had an NES at my house, and we played Blades of Steel, Double Dribble, and Contra relentlessly. Or rather, I should say, my brother, who's older and meaner, played relentlessly. I thought NES stood for Never Ever Scott's Turn. My mom, being a problem solver and realizing that no amount of nagging would influence my brother to let me play, got me a Game Boy. And again, like many, I became obsessed with Tetris. I added World Cup soccer to the mix, and my path to handheld gaming began without me even knowing it. So my path, like many that you don't know you're on, wasn't direct. I got what I thought was the best job a 22-year-old could have out of college. I majored in marketing, and I landed in Turner Broadcasting with TNT and TBS in entertainment marketing, and I fell in love with it. I still think it was the coolest job I could have had as a 22-year-old. I was there for about 4 years in Atlanta, and I got curious, and I got the itch for New York, and I made the jump to HBO. Now, I joined the brand marketing team, and initially our work was on doing expansive content campaigns that demonstrated the premium value of HBO. We'd done the wildly successful HBO Voyeur campaign and followed that up with the equally impressive HBO Imagine. But conflict was in the air, and I'm not sure if Netflix is here today, but they fired some shots, and the streaming wars were beginning, and I was lucky enough to be at HBO. So I worked on the initial launch campaign for HBO's first ever streaming product, HBO Go. As you probably know, it's been renamed about 1,000 times, I think. So I was there from the beginning. Really fun, really impressive. But again, I got curious and I wanted to learn more, so I made the obvious jump to Spanish language television. I don't speak Spanish. I love the language. I'm a big fan. But I was there and I was broadly responsible for monetizing our social platforms. So my team worked with advertisers and we came up with social media content campaigns, largely video, that we distributed across the whole of Univision. Again, did that for a few years, got the itch to learn. So I went back to school. And with the intention of opening myself up to new industries and having some new opportunities, mobile gaming being one of them. So I studied finance and analytics, and here I am today. Took a little doing, but I ended up at Devsisters as Vice President of Marketing, and that's why I'm standing before you. So enough about me. Let's get into the work and let's get into the learnings. There were a few market conditions, and some or many of you will be aware of a lot of these things, but I think it helps to just go through what the market looked like at the time and again, how that informed our launch strategy. So Korea mobile gaming was really strong in 2020. Koreans then and now have excellent devices, high storage, high speed. They also have fast and ubiquitous connectivity, both in cellular networks and in Wi-Fi, which is obviously very important for downloading and playing mobile games. And as I said, the mobile gaming industry was really strong even then. They were spenders. So the other two factors that were really helpful were high brand and IP awareness. We already had a game called Cookie Run Oven Breakout that was wildly popular in Korea. It's a runner game, and it takes place in the same story and the same lore as Cookie Run Kingdom, which I'll get to in a second. We also had Puzzle World. So we had some host promotion or some cross promotion that we had a natural target. And then Cookie Run Kingdom was really set up well because Cookie Run Kingdom is somewhere between an RPG and a JRPG. And importantly, it really expands the Cookie Run story and universe. So fans had already had a taste of it. They already had favorite cookies, and Cookie Run Kingdom just opened it up. And then the last point I'll make is there was really outstanding marketing by our colleagues in Korea. Now, it sounds like bragging, but I assure you I didn't do that campaign, and the results will back me up. So let's go through a little bit more depth the market conditions that led to it. 2020 wasn't early for adoption of mobile phones, but Korea was way ahead of the curve. 94% of folks owning mobile phones and using them to access the internet. And they led the way as early as 2017 in internet connectivity. Now, you see that red bar, never mind that for a second, we'll come back to it. The other thing was they were spenders. They were comfortable spending in mobile gaming. So a mobile game that had gacha and RPG mechanics was really well positioned. Koreans spent about $1 billion in Q1 of 2020 alone and ranked 4th globally in spite of having a population of only 50 million. Now let's recap. We have a really well-qualified audience. They have the technology to support the game, and they are comfortable spending. We also have high brand awareness. It sets up for a marketer's dream. But even with those good conditions, you still need good marketing. So I skipped one. The other factors, 76% of Koreans, according to Newzoo, are gaming enthusiasts, meaning they either play, watch, or own games. So again, really high qualified, really great market to go after. All those factors led to this. 4 key things. There was cross-game promotion in Cookie Run Oven Break, advertising an entirely different game that expanded on the story that their fans were already familiar with. There was cross-social promotion. So again, we had a built-in target that we could message to and that serve them up a different game and a new way to interact with the Cookie Run IP. Next, everyone remembers the UA glory days, I'd imagine, in this room. It was efficient. You could you could acquire low cost and had high LTV, so the team was able to really invest in UA instead of branding because they already had brand awareness, because there was already a familiarity with the IP. And lastly, the messaging was set up naturally. This is a new game, different functionality, different mechanics, different way to interact with the IP. So it was an outstanding and overwhelming success. Pre-registration outperformed targets by 5 times. Daily active users outperformed expectations by 6.4 times. The app was downloaded over 10 million times in the first month. Wildly successful. The team nailed it and set up the funding for investment in new markets, which leads me back home to the US. In a lot of ways, the US was completely the opposite of Korea. We had fewer and less powerful mobile devices, and we still do. We have subpar and unreliable connectivity. If you've been to Korea lately, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Mobile gaming health industry in 2020 was on the verge, but we did not know at the time that the explosion was coming. And then there was virtually no awareness in the US of Cookie Run. Oven Break was barely played, Cookie Run was barely known, so a different approach was going to be needed. The only thing we really had in common was outstanding marketing by Devsisters. And again, not bragging, results back me up. So let's dig in a little bit. 72% of Americans in 2020 own mobile phones. Now, you'll say our population is about 6 times higher, and you'd be right. But remember that red bar? US lags far behind in terms of connectivity, making it challenging to download and play sophisticated mobile games like Cookie Run Kingdom. Next, the overall health of the industry. Again, we know this now and we know it was about to change, but the US lagged far behind at this time. And a different approach was needed. And in fact, the US did approach similarly to Korea, the same strategy initially, and flighted a UA campaign that was little to no success. So they went back to the drawing board and tried to figure out, how do we find, is there product market fit? How do we market this game? How do we find an audience? So we did a few key things. And I'll go through each in a little bit more depth, but community management and listening. We heard the fans, we watched them interact with the IP, we understood what their value prop was by listening. Then we approached it as we needed branding. There was no awareness. We couldn't just use efficient UA. We had to explain to fans what this story was, what the theme were, who the characters were, for them to even be interested when we served UA up. Next, there's a VO campaign that was frankly perfect. The themes of Cookie Run Kingdom are that of diversity, inclusion, and representation. The characters are endearing, they're charming, they wear their flaws on the sleeve. They're what I like to call a celebration of misfits, so people can see themselves in one or many cookies. And then last, we partnered with Sonic and Sega, and partnering with such iconic brand and such a well-known IP really legitimized Cookie Run Kingdom and signaled to Americans that there was a strong investment in Cookie Run. So let's get a little bit more in depth. The image you see here is from our video that announced the VO campaign. In the US office, a really wise decision was made to cast VO who were truly representative of the characters. Now, mind you, we're talking about cookies, but there is a wide range of diversity within those cookies in terms of color, ethnicities, backgrounds, et cetera, et cetera. And so by doing this, we aligned so closely to Gen Z's values and solved a major problem that they saw with gaming, with content and entertainment, when they didn't see true representation in casting. It landed perfectly, and it was a great illustration that diversity and inclusion was endemic to this game. It was never an afterthought. It was built into it. This video was viewed 2.8 million times and sent us into the classic hockey stick growth. You see the date circled? That's the date the video dropped. So you think marketing doesn't work? We can prove it. The growth was incredible. It was exceptional. Fans really bonded with it. Again, it was from that listening. Now, we didn't just stop there. We continued to invest and we continued to advertise. And we really believe that continued investment was key to sustaining. Instead of peaking and valleying, we peaked and we maintained. Because fans were delivered content over and over, new updates, new videos, new information about the game, new information about the characters, new stories. They saw that we were in it for the long haul. And then finally, the Sonic partnership. It wasn't a major priority in the US. We were still heavily focused on the voiceover campaign, but again, sent those signals. Cookie Run Kingdom's here to stay. Sega acknowledges that it's a legitimate player, and it really helped establish Cookie Run Kingdom and Devsisters generally as a player in mobile gaming. Now, what did we learn? We learned a lot, and it seems obvious, but marketing needs to be specific, it needs to be localized, and if you don't have a team in the market, you might miss some signals. Easy for me to say. You might miss some signals, and you might not see what that fit is. Next, again, seems obvious. Listen to your community. Figure out what is important to them, what is interesting to them, what is appealing to them about the game, and then serve that back to them. You see that with our voiceover campaign, and it's not inauthentic to say, hey, this is what's important to our fans. This is what they care about. This is what their values are. How might we align with it? It is as genuine marketing as you can do. Next, consumers surprise us all the times. They find value in games, they find value in products that we can never imagine as marketers. So you need to be open to, they might know better than you how it fits for them. And again, it seems obvious thinking about it. The fans know what they want, they know what value they have. Listen to them, engage with them, talk to them. And then lastly, with gaming, and I think with content and entertainment as well, there's often a deeper value to consuming. It's not just playing, it's not just winning, it's not just competing, it's not just cool new features. There's something really meaningful. And if you can tap into that as a marketer and have that game really reach someone emotionally, that decision to play, that decision to download, that decision to follow becomes really easy, and you're gonna grow really quickly. Now, what's coming up for us, and I'm in marketing, so I got to plug something here, all right? Cookie Run Kingdom continues to be a major priority for us. As I mentioned earlier, we continue to invest. The story continues to grow both inside and outside the game. We serve our core fans, the story that they love, the characters that they love, and they reward us by continuing to play. Later this year, we'll launch Brick City, a simulation builder game that is non-Cookie Run IP. Very exciting game, very fun. We think it's a really nice match, again, for Gen Z, and we're really excited to bring that to market. Later in the year, we'll launch Cookie Run Witch's Castle, a puzzle game that draws on the Cookie Run story. And then into next year, we'll launch the mysteriously named Cookie Run Project B, to be named later, as well as Cookie Run Oven Smash. So as you can see, Cookie Run Kingdom, finding that success, finding that financial success, has helped push Devsisters into more games, more Cookie Run IP, new IP, and it all came from listening to fans, serving them what they want, and aligning to their values. Now, with that, my counter is, I'm good on time here. Yeah. With that, I'll take questions.
You mentioned that Cookie Run had a really strong foothold in Korea before we started the American campaign. How long did it take for the initial Cookie Run to get that foothold before you felt comfortable doing the US stuff?
In Korea?
Yeah.
Man, Cookie Run was known in Korea probably for 10 years prior to Oven Break. There was an earlier version that was less successful. Oven Break found success, and it was probably 2 to 5 years before Kingdom was launched. I would say it took maybe 6 months to a year to realize that we had a hit and that we would have the capital to invest in new markets. Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned that Oven Break never really got traction in the U.S. Was that something that you just didn't try to market here, or what were the obstacles to a successful campaign for Oven Break in the U.S.?
The timing of the U.S. office opening was related to Kingdom. So the purpose of the U.S. office was to launch Kingdom. So we now have a decent player base, a very loyal player base for Oven Break, but Kingdom is what got us into the market here.
And are there any territories that you have wanted to target with Rogue Kingdom where you really struggled? You had great success with 3 in the U.S.
Yeah.
That leaves a lot of work.
Yeah, so there's 2 major markets, one of which is under my purview, which it's not for this year, but it's coming, is Latin America. I think, having been in Spanish language television, having a good idea of that audience and how diverse and interesting that is, I think that's a really, really prime market for us. Obviously not the biggest spenders there, but a huge market and a really important one. And then Europe. We've actually just opened an office in Berlin as of November of last year. So Europe, we see a big opportunity there. And we actually saw the English language campaigns bumped us in Europe. So anywhere there were likely to be English speakers, we saw Kingdom naturally, organically grow.
We're hiring a VP of marketing. What things should we look for a mobile game that's going to do a global launch?
Great question. I would say the understanding of that higher value prop, that deeper meaning, that more emotional connection, I think is really important and helpful, especially now as mobile gaming's gotten more competitive. The other thing that I have found helpful is I did a lot of different things as a marketer. At Univision, I was influencer marketing, I was social media content, I ran a Twitter, and then in my background, I had some more traditional marketing training. So that has been really valuable to me. And I would say someone who's very versatile and open to optimizing. I don't know that some marketers who are more traditional, that's a learned skill for them, but I think, newer, younger marketers, that's pretty endemic.
I got 2 questions. So the first question is, you mentioned that there was a partnership with Sonic to kind of promote you guys. What kind of partnership was it?
Yeah, in-game partnership. We featured their IP in Kingdom, and then there was some cross-promotion. Again, fairly limited in the US, but in Korea it was much more extensive because they were a little bit further along with Kingdom.
Got it. And the second question is, I think in the video that you mentioned was a voiceover video. And typically voiceovers are not typically viral, right? So what did you guys do to really promote that video so that people will actually be aware of it?
So what really helped that video was the VOs themselves. Because we cast the way we did, we found lesser known VOs, and they were really underdogs. We viewed them that way. And they had small, loyal fan bases, and you could see by the number of them, it became a bit of a multiplier effect. So 1,000 here, 2,000 there, 5,000 here, really started that groundswell, and their fans were really rooting for them. They wanted them to be successful, and because they were underdogs, they were more willing to promote. They wanted the game to be successful, and it wasn't your typical influencer campaign where you only get what you pay for. They went above and beyond, so it was really, really beneficial. That really just kind of pushed that video up. Someone over here, yeah.
So what other vertical markets do you plan on taking the IP?
Vertical markets meaning platforms?
Other areas, clothing, exploiting in different areas, anime.
Yeah. So, the obvious choices we've experimented with: merch, food, and like plushies. So those are sort of the obvious ones. And we actually just had a VP of business development join who's working through that very question. Last question, because my clock's about to run out. I'm going to get the orchestra music in a second.
Perfect. It's kind of a different question, but how would we go about getting early access to Cookie Run Oven Smash, something like that?
So Great question. So if you want early access to Brick City, we'll be messaging you later this year. But for Oven Smash, we're building out what I like to call a marketing playbook, and giving early access is one of those things. So when the time comes, and it's probably later next year, we'll be pushing that out via the social channels. We'll do cross promotion on Kingdom and Oven Break, and really hopefully like find a mass audience for it. And again, we'll have a limited early access most likely. With that, I just want to say thank you for all the wonderful questions, and thank you to our hosts for an awesome convention.